Hello, everybody. Great to see you all. We've had a lot of webinars over the recent years, and in these webinars, people have shared their thoughts and their wisdoms and their experience. And then as the co-founders, we came together and said, how do we capture this? And together we came up with the idea of the wisdom bank. The sort of wisdom we get is being one kind of on the macro level in one sense, whereby we're talking about bigger issues like succession planning, exits, boards, and so on and so forth. But also during these webinars, we had little pearls of wisdom, little statements that were magic that people went, oh, right, I must have that, I must share that. And so we wanted to put that together in a place where everybody could see it. So the Wisdom Bank is going to do two things. It's going to capture this wisdom, and so people can come to it and use it. And then also we're encouraging people to share their wisdom. And there'll be a mechanism for doing that. So it's a place where a repository for wisdom and a place where you can share your wisdom. We will use various products. We'll start with the website for webinar. We'll also be doing podcasts. We'll maybe do a book. There'll be other things that we will do physically. The important thing is that it's a living tool. It will be growing all the time. And we think it's so important, given the way social entrepreneurs are and what we're doing with social innovation around the world, that wisdom is there, that people can feel part of it. And it's an enabling environment. As social entrepreneurs, we think we're learning all the time, and it's important we're together. So that's what this is all about. I now like to hand back over to Kathryn, as Chris said, who's got a special message from Jeroo, Billimoria, who's the chief facilitator at Catalyst 2030. Has been one of our partners in this journey. She sent a little message to us. So over to you, Kathryn, to share Jeroo's message.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and I am really happy to be here at the Wisdom Bank launch. Firstly, a super big congratulations to my three friends, Mel, Andrea, Chris, who have been leading the elders and providing wisdom to all of us in the sector. Many Catalyst members have benefited from the wisdom of the elders. So having the Wisdom Bank is phenomenal. So firstly, a big congratulations to them for having the idea and launching the Wisdom Bank. Secondly, I hope everybody contributes to developing our sector's Wisdom Bank. And thirdly, I think there will be, for all the members, a place to go where they can access the Wisdom Bank and make sure that our collective learning becomes a reality. So congratulations once again, and thank you very much. And I wish I were there in person. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Mel. That was lovely, wasn't it? It's my pleasure to introduce the panel just now, and I'm going to introduce you in the order in which you'll be speaking. So first of all, Marc Freedman, President and co-CEO of CoGenerate. Marc is an expert on the longevity revolution, and has been thinking about these things for a great deal of time, and it's lovely that you joined us today, Marc. You've run many different organizations in this field, including Encore, which was the Encore career, the Encore and all of that, which was lovely, and before that, the Experience Corps, which involved 50 plus people working particularly in the field of education. Marc, you're very welcome. Valeria Duflot, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us. Looking at your bio, we got some of the following information. You must tell me if it's true or not. But you are a believer in a green and equitable world. I think that is something that I know about you. You love to build solutions, and you definitely challenge outdated mindsets. You like to empower others to make an impact. And you love to advise leaders of all kinds in all different situations. Valeria, you're very welcome, and thank you for joining us. And then we have Kathryn Hall-Trujillo, sometimes known as Mama Cat. You, Madame, are the founder director of the Birthing Project USA. What an incredible project, which you have just stepped down from a few months ago. Am I right? Yeah. And and then there's a lovely phrase that comes after that, which is the Underground Railroad for New Life, which I think was very, very wonderful. And a warm welcome to you. We look forward to your speaking to us in a little while. And last but not least, Andrea Coleman, who is the co-founder of Riders for Health and the founder of Two Wheels for Life. So without any further ado, Marc, can we ask you to talk to us for a little while? Preferably not 50 minutes, just maybe a little less.
Thank you so much, Chris and Andrea and Mel for starting this, and what a joy to be part of this discussion with Kathryn and Valeria. For me, this is feeling like a full circle experience. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary as an organization this year, and I started the organization with a man named John Gardner, who was 45 years older than I was. And John was a giant in the world of social entrepreneurship. He encouraged Bill Drayton to start Ashoka. He's the person that Jeff Skoll went to talk to when he was starting the Skoll Foundation to figure out what the focus should be. And John encouraged him to emphasize social entrepreneurship. And in fact, if you go to the Skoll Foundation, there's a quote from John that rings the walls of their conference room. And I without actually having the words for it, I was always trying to get John to share his wisdom with me. In fact, one time I was so intent on doing so, we were driving on one of California's fast-moving freeways in my tiny Volkswagen Beetle, and he was in the passenger seat, and it was late at night, and I was asking him question after question. And in fact, I was so wrapped up in his answers to these questions that I neglected to notice that all the traffic in front of us had come screeching to a halt. There was a sea of taillights, and I slammed on the brakes, and we narrowly avoided disaster. And he was in the passenger seat, and he had his hands pinned to the dashboard, and he was repeating the phrase, "Oh my God," over and over again. And I was repeating the phrase, "I'm killing a national treasure." He never drove with me much after that, but he did continue to share his wisdom. And I was thinking in advance of today about some of the things that he taught me, because they seem to be as pertinent now as they were a quarter century ago. But one of the things he said is that his whole life and work had a transformative change when he realized it was as important to be interested as it was to be interesting, even more important, and how he had cultivated this shift from pontificating about what he had learned to asking other people about what they had learned, and the power of listening. Another thing that I remember him talking about, and I think a lot about these days as the world can seem extremely bleak, and our prospects in the mid 1960s in America, when John was overseeing the creation of what has been called the Great Society, and was pushing for our first national health insurance plan called Medicare. He was being opposed by physicians and most of the medical world. And he said in one of his speeches, "America today faces breathtaking opportunities disguised as unsolvable problems." That's become a mantra for me as well. But the other thing that he didn't so much say, but that I continue to think about, is that he oftentimes was reluctant to talk about lessons from the past. He was focused on the future, even in his 80s, when it was about a future that he wouldn't even see himself, but felt deeply connected to nonetheless. This idea of generativity. Erik Erikson, the great scholar of adult development, said that the hallmark of successful development in the latter phases of life could be encapsulated in the phrase, "I am what survives of me." And John really lived that out. Now it's been more than 25 years since he passed away. I've spent the last 25 years very much focused on applying the wisdom of elders to benefit society, and particularly to help nurture and develop younger generations, what elders could do for young people. But now I'm age 65 myself. I'm eligible for the Medicare program that John actually created. I never imagined that I would get to this day. And I think about something else that he once said to me as he was in his 80s. He said, "I'm more conscious than ever of the passage of time." And I really do feel that, this idea that there's less time ahead than behind, and a sense of both looking back at what one's learned from life, but also a feeling of urgency, that there's this opportunity to continue contributing, but it's not a road that goes on forever. And there's a psychologist at Stanford University, a woman named Laura Carstensen, who argues that this idea of the finiteness of time is extraordinarily important for how elders think about what matters in life. And the thing that matters most, Laura argues, is relationship. And she gives the example of somebody tells you you have 2 months to live. You don't think, oh, this is a great time to take up the oboe, right? Or I always wanted to learn Mandarin. You focus on the people that you love. And it turns out that as we get older, even though our knees creak and our, recall might not be as sharp, one thing that does grow is the capacity to form and sustain relationships. Empathy, emotional regulation, all blossom as we move into the second half of life. And it turns out that the Harvard study of adult development, which has been going for almost 80 years and is the gold standard of research on well-being and happiness in later life, found that there's a direction to that impulse to connection. Older people, elders who connect with, work with, mentor young people are 3 times as likely to be happy as those who fail to do so. George Vaillant, the psychiatrist who led that study, encapsulated in the phrase, "Biology flows downhill." That there's just a natural impulse in that direction. And I think what I've learned is that it's not just important what older people must do, can do to help improve the prospects of younger generations, what older people can do for young people. Chris mentioned the Experience Corps program, which was a mobilization of older people in the United States. It's now in 25 cities, which helps children read at grade level by the 3rd grade. So that's obviously very important, but I'm more and more sensitive to what older and younger people can do with each other, every bit as much as for. And we completed a study with the University of Chicago last year that showed there's deep pent-up demand on the part of older and younger change makers to collaborate and to do so around the leading issues of the day, from mental health to climate. Climate was the #1 issue that older people wanted to work with younger generations, where mental health was the #1 issue for young people. And the surprise of that study was that young people were twice as interested as older people in working in that way, and particularly young people of color. But the issue that people of both ends of the age spectrum raise is that it's too hard. We live in such an age-segregated society that it requires oftentimes heroic efforts for older and younger people to come together, which is another reason why the Wisdom Bank is so timely and critically important. I took a step this past year that's an echo of the creation of our organization when I founded it with somebody older than me, John Gardner. and moved into a co-leadership role with Eunice Lynn Nichols, who is a young change maker who I've been working with for a couple of decades, who started doing this work in her 20s. And I'm discovering really the joys of co-leadership and co-generational leadership, and maybe even coming to believe that the wisdom of the young and the curiosity of the old are the ticket for. So maybe we need a curiosity bank, Chris, just as much as a wisdom bank. But anyway, it's just wonderful to have this discussion today, and to see so much interest in bringing generations together to create the kind of change that no one group could ever hope to achieve on its own. So with that, I'll pass it back to you, Chris, and then to Valeria.
Thank you very much. The Curiosity Bank. It's a perfect idea for the second bank. We've got to obviously open. Thank you very much. Let's, Andrea, if you're comfortable, I'll pass this straight to Valeria. Is that okay? Yeah, that's great. Valeria?
Absolutely, Chris.
Thank you very much. Valeria, you're up. It'd be lovely to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm very honored, very happy to be here for the launch of the Wisdom Bank. So I'm here as the younger person in the conversation, and I think as to share a few stories that illustrate how the wisdom of people older to me have been helping me in my career. So there are many, so please bear with me if I go a bit too far, because like I really believe in this need that we have to exchange, and I've learned so much from conversation with you actually and many others. So to give a bit of context to people who do not know me, I'm 36 years old, and I've been leading my organization for the past 13 years. And the stories I will share involve change makers from different industries, cultural and generational backgrounds. Their age they range from 10 to 40 years older than me. And some are social entrepreneurs, other politicians, policymakers, and some technologists. And they all share the same commitment to dedicating their life to advancing the common good, but not necessarily all per se social entrepreneurs. But I think that when we have, this drive to change the world, we have similar experiences. And I was reflecting, actually, that was a very interesting exercise to do, because I often reflect on those pearls of wisdoms I have had the chance to garner through the years, but I don't necessarily look at them as a continuation like I have done to be able to speak in an articulate way to you today. And I realized that they were basically falling under two big buckets for me, like wisdom that helped me unlock my potential and develop my leadership style, modeling after what I have seen around me, and also wisdom that helped me build the resilience to last the way, and by learning to make space for self-acceptance and self-care, which I think that all of us can understand, that can relate, that is really, really important in the work that we do. So the first story I'd like to share is the one that actually enabled me to take the plunge and build that confidence that we need to be able to start stepping in as social entrepreneur. I feel that often as changemaker, we have a calling from a very young age, and or at least for some time, we actually start working and like taking the plunge and becoming a social entrepreneur. And it certainly was the case for me. And although I had known that for some time I was meant to be an entrepreneur, and that my purpose was to work for the common good, I initially started working in research and then in the corporate world, where I was miserable. People who know me can imagine that was not fitting me. It's only as I was about to start consulting for a big hospital chain that an incredible woman innovator told me those words I will never forget. She told me, "Valeria, I am not going to be here forever. You need to go on the ground now. You need to start something now." And at the time, I was 23 years old. I had MBA debts to pay. I was coming from a culture that had made me internalize the fact that I need to work like for 10 years before being able to start my own ventures. And so when she told me that, I was able to, really look at myself another way and start projecting myself as somebody who might be an entrepreneur in 10 years from now, but somebody who had the power to become one today. And that was extremely powerful. And that has led me not only to take the plunge a few months later, but also to commit since then to always seeking to empower others and always be a force behind to say, yeah, you can do it now. So it's been a really, really important thing and something I think we can all do individually all the time to try and make people realize their own potential. Fast forward 10 years to organization. I started finding myself experiencing a feeling which I'm sure is familiar to many of us in this room, the feeling of stagnation. I remember feeling really frustrated at the pace of change, the uphill battle that it is to try and move the needle, to constantly have to maneuver, to see the decision makers that we need to work with actually walk the talk. And I remember I walk in Brussels one day, where I turned to the man I was working with, a man who, to me, embodies like resilience and commitment, like no other, because he's done something that is insane, that I could not picture myself doing. Is as a non-politician, he's worked for 30 years at a very high-level position and political positions, working for nature, right? And so my thinking was when I was with him, if I'm feeling frustrated, imagine how you must be feeling frustrated, right? Working in this political system, trying to work for nature. And ask him, how is it that you are doing it? How is it that you're surviving it? And 10 years in, it's hard. How do you do it? And he told me, you have to have patience, Valeria. Keep doing the good work. And at some point, you won't know why things will change. And I return to this wisdom over and over, because of course the frustration is not gone, but I'm trying to replace it with patience. And it's something that I share a lot, this story, and even for myself, sharing it back to him a few months ago when he was the one in need of hearing it, because it's something that we come back to in our careers. Another area where pearls of wisdom from people older to me have been tremendously useful to me has been in helping me developing what I call radical acceptance for myself in different areas. There was the part, like, thanks to Andrea, I realized that no, I was not dumb to try to have less social enterprise with my life partners twice. That was not wrong. There was nothing wrong with me for finding it really hard. That in fact figured out how to work with loved ones, with partners or friends, and how and whether to call it quits is a really tangible and common challenge that is very familiar to many, many social entrepreneurs. I also been able to come to terms with the pressure that's thanks to men that we have living with as leaders of organization, the pressure that we're living as we work for the greater good, that we have this belief that we need to look perfect and strong at all time to keep on inspiring the trust that we need to inspire to keep on receiving the support that we think that we need to bring our organization forward. You know, we have that fear that if we don't do so, if we don't appear strong and perfect, if we look human and fallible, we might disappoint and we might let people down. And that sharing that feedback back to me, hearing that resonance, feeling that resonance, this shared experience, helped me realize that it isn't true. And that is a feeling that we can only overcome when we come together in community. Speaking with elders also reinforced me to gain acceptance for who I am as a leader, my very own identity, understanding that I don't have to be everything and everything, and it's actually vital for the well-being of my organization, my teams, even myself, that I work at the intersection of where I bring the most value and where I have fun. Right? We tend at the beginning, because we want to be able to do everything, but it's not the right thing. And even if we feel it instinctively, having it fed back and through ourselves is really important things, because it helps us to let go of this old self concept. And also something, as we discussed, letting go. And the people who know me, they might know that I'm going through a transition, multi-layered, personal, professional, in every direction. And that has been rather complex. And as I've been reflecting on these past decades, I often encountered fears or the feeling that perhaps I was not bringing forward things fast enough. I found myself turning back and being like, what is it that you've been doing, Valeria, in 2023? You know, it is really those feelings are hard to carry, right? But again, through community, through speaking with elders, through speaking with people who've been there before me, I've been able to find myself in conversation with people who have been telling me, hey, you're going through a transition. You have many, many hard decisions to make right now. It is hard. You know, volunteering is without me fishing for it. And that's helped me accepting that, yes, indeed, it is hard. It is normal that it feels difficult and so on, and that the pace that I'm going through is the right pace for me, and to be able to develop this self-compassion towards myself and be able to keep carrying on.
You see, Valeria, this is why it's so important to have youngers and elders, because you listen to that, to other people, and you think about well-being. And those of us who are in the older group, the elders group, I think some of us have not learned those lessons of listening. So it's really wonderful to hear you talking about how you've really listened and learned from others, and that very important point about taking care of yourself so that you can think about others and take care of others. Thank you so much, Valeria, for that. Chris, would you introduce us to Mama Cat?
Yes, absolutely. So now it's time for us to ask you, Kathryn, to speak, if you would. It would be lovely if you would give us a few words on wisdom. You are, of course, a founding member of the Elders Council for Social Entrepreneurs. You were in Aix-en-Provence with us when we first started it, and we never forget that. You're now on our advisory council and appreciate that as well. And we'd like to hand over to you for a few minutes. Thank you.
Well, I could have just sat here and listened to Marc all day. And that's also the feeling that I get when I look up when we have our sessions, and I see Chris and I see Andrea and I see Mel, and I see the people that I met the first time who were my age, and who, although we had very different experiences and came from different places, there was something very core about coming together at that moment and listening to each other and understanding that even though we were at this place in our lives, we were still like being born again every day. And we had something we wanted to share with each other and with the world still. And so that's a sense of excitement that I get when I know I'm going to be with my crew. I was very intrigued by the idea of a wisdom bank. And I don't know if there are different perspectives. And one of the perspectives that I have is the Ashoka perspective. I should say in the beginning, the middle, and the end, that being an Ashoka fellow really changed my life, because it gave me that little anointing or appointing or approval or whatever it was, that I could be as crazy as I wanted to be, and that was perfectly okay. And that it was okay to rethink things. And I came in at the point that Ashoka University started, which meant we were rethinking education. And I had the opportunity to come in and work as a community professor and demonstrate, like, what is a community professor and what is education, what is knowledge, what is wisdom, and to begin to help educational systems figure out the difference between those things and what things we value, and like what should be in, if we were putting together a bank, you know, what would be in the bank. So now I'm going to back up one moment and say my other perspective, which I've been able to hold on to and to put into that bank and to treat it as if it's a resource worth preserving, is I am a midwife. But I was not a midwife until I delivered my first grandchild, who is now 37 years old. And at the point that I had to step in and deliver her because her mom needed someone to catch that baby, I never caught a baby before, I realized some things about being an elder. It's like putting my hands there and having a little person come out of another person into my hands was something I had never experienced before. And that thing inside of me that's really, really ancient, that elders and grandparents have, people that care for the newborn, my first instinct was to pray. And as I was praying for my grandchild, I realized that she would never be safe unless I prayed for all the children that were being born at that moment. And I think that that understanding of who we can personally identify with is only a core of all the people we have to identify with in order to protect who we love, is probably why everyone who steps out and becomes an activist, who steps out and decides to join that force of people who are co-creating a better world, understands that it's not just about you, it's about a much bigger picture, and you do the part that you want to do for the whole world, but the you that you love puts a face on it. And so that was the gift of becoming not only a grandmother, but becoming a keeper of the world that we live in, of having responsibility for wanting to work with other people because I couldn't do it by myself, to co-create a better world. And then it becomes like, but then who decides what needs to go into that better world? Who's in charge of making those decisions? Who gets in and who doesn't get in? And so in this bank that we're talking about, it's like that Ashoka concept of everyone a change maker. And just because you're old doesn't mean you're a wisdom keeper. You know, and sometimes when being a midwife, you look at a baby and you say, oh, you one of those been here before children. And you understand what that means. Caitlin is one of those people. I love Caitlin. I've never met Caitlin, but I know something about her from the way that she conducts herself and the way that she interacts and the relationship that she's made with us. It's like she doesn't have to wait to be 75 years old to make a 75-year-old feel like I see you and you are worth something, I value you, and to give you that little bounce that you need to keep on going. So I think that this moment that we're in right now of understanding how we bring all the pieces of life together and create the road while walking, of bringing everyone to that circle where we are going to respect each other and care for each other and figure out how to listen to the different languages of generations, you know, not to get so scared when a young person texts you instead of picking up the phone and calling you, but also having the courage to say, and this is what I think. I think this is an amazing moment. It's a moment that should be documented. It's a place where we don't know what's going to go in the bank, but we know that we have actually laid the foundation, and we are not enclosing it into a building with no windows, but laying a foundation and deciding as we go, you know, what is this house going to look like? The other thing about the Ashoka universities is that so many of them have the change maker part of it in the school of architecture, because architecture is where you build for the future based on a strong foundation. And so I think that the idea of actually taking this to the level of saying we are going to figure out how to identify what is worth saving and how we save it and how we share it is like, wow, we're going to do this. And all of us that are part of it are part of the people who've come together to co-create this better world that we envision for a future that we have not even seen yet, because our children live in a world and will live in a world and produce a world that we will only be ancestors to, but we'll be smiling ancestors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathryn. That is really beautiful. And it what I love about all three speakers is that you're really talking about the real value of wisdom. And of course, we have to learn, as you're saying, in the Wisdom Bank, how to build it, what goes into it, how we make sure that people have access to it. But I think that you three have done what Mel, Chris, and I have wanted, is to create that warmth and acceptance and openness that is necessary if we're all going to be able to feel comfortable to share wisdom and learn from that wisdom. We have three speakers who've been fantastic, so we'd just love to hear from any questions or comments from the people who are who've joined us today.
Absolutely.
Is there anyone who'd like to do that?
Yes, I know of at least one, Andrea, and I was just going to say that whilst we're selecting a speaker, we're going to put up a little poll, which is just asking a little bit of advice, and people just have to fill it in and submit as it comes up on the screen in front of you. Caitlin will put that up. Kathryn, Caitlin was obviously rather moved by your statements. She has put something in the chat, which is great. If people would just fill in that very quickly, it's just really to consult you to see whether there is a particular favorite way of receiving information. And while you're doing that, I just wanted to acknowledge Ashoka and the New Longevity Project, which is ongoing at the moment, the Skull Foundation, the Schwab Foundation, Catalyst 2030, 50+, the Social Innovation Circle, the Wellbeing Project, Tendril, CoGenerate, and Fit for Life Ashoka, which is a new program that has just been announced as the globalizer, as part of the Ashoka globalizer. All of those organizations and people within are behind us and supporting us, which is a wonderful thing to be part of. So we very much appreciate that. I think we've probably now had enough time to submit. Andrea, I was going to say that I know that Faiz had a remark that he might like to make. Would you like to come in, Faiz?
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Good morning from San Francisco. I just put on the link and I put in my submission to the Wisdom Bank, and just to share, I always have this quote: say, "Make time for others, and others will make time for you." Just like this morning, I'm making time to join the Zoom session, and hopefully it will be a start to something more that I can contribute to the elders for social enterprise. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really wonderful. We have a lot to learn, so we'd find that very valuable indeed. We have had another session on this earlier, and one of what was interesting about that session was that everybody was talking about very practical issues about how everybody thinks about fundraising, but of course, in terms of money and social enterprise, money is much deeper than that. It has so many layers to what money means to a social enterprise, and that tension between and money. And we talked about the fears and concerns about succession. So we have so many layers to look at about what wisdom means, what wisdom is, where it comes from, how we gather it, how we disseminate it, but all the issues that people need support and help with, that so many of us have gone through, but others can learn from. So I think our intention is just to make sure it's a warm place to be. Chris, is there someone else? Is there anyone else who'd like to make a comment?
Well, I was going to say, Sabine, would you like to just jump in and make a remark? You'd be welcome if you'd like to.
then maybe this works.
There we are. Perfect.
Thank you so much for all of the speakers and for organizing this. I think this is very helpful to unite social entrepreneurs from around the world. And I always like to learn from others. And I also think that, especially in island context, I would have something to bring to the table as well. But I'm very interested to see where this will go, because it's a really, really good initiative. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Sabine. Very much indeed. Michael, did you have a remark you might like to share with us? Michael Cass?
Oh, sure. No, I mean, I think something I love, and I'm here because I saw Mama Cat's name on it, and I was like, any chance I get to just perpetrate crime with her and listen to her wisdom is always welcome. But I think there's a really powerful distinction that comes up when we're in groups like this, which is, when we're talking about the practical things like succession and fundraising and things like that, and then the stuff that was in all of the stories, which is the who, like who are we being, right? And how are we showing up as humans as we do this work? And that, the two are interwoven. And so what often gets lost is the guidance of elders and the co-guidance of youngers. And sometimes elders are youngers, like the people who are older might actually be younger in who they are. And it's really cool that this group is coming together to make sure that that conversation is surfaced, because it really feels, with all of the the poly crises that we're facing collectively, I think is the new word that didn't exist until this year, that sense of not just how do we do this, but how do we do it in a good way, right? While Valeria, like you were saying, while honoring our own well-being and our own hearts and our own journeys, and finding the overlap there. So it's really, I'm so glad I joined. It's a really exciting conversation, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Michael, very much.
I think it's really worth looking at Olivia's piece about he's in Uganda as with the Congolese refugees movement, and how he looks at how elders of how valuable they are in that environment. So thank you for that, Olivier.
Maybe Olivia, would you like to expand that a little, or are you happy to leave it there?
Okay, thank you so much. I'm Olivier Nguzirwanda. I'm from Rwanda refugee settlement in Uganda.
You're very
I'm
welcome.
a Congolese refugee. So I'm so inspired by this conversation. It's really touching, and I'm always proud to see elders seated down and chatting with young people. So I was so really glad. I'm 34 years old. I'm so glad to be part of this, because I yield much of wisdom and so on. So on my side, when elders sit down, most of us, like young people, we look at them. When we look at them, we see them just as the wise books that are there seated down. If you want just to get more information, more wisdom, you can go and sit and listen to what they are telling. So that's the reason why being with you is something great. We need more, and this is really, really promising to the world. So thank you so much. I'll be glad to learn from more sections here with you.
You'll be most welcome.
Thank you so much.
Jacqueline has a remark she wants to make.
Right, please, Jacqueline.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to share how overcome with emotion I am to have stumbled upon this group, because truly I stumbled upon it. My interest is exactly this, creating intergenerational relationships. And just Google led me to your page, and here I am. And similar to Valeria, I recognized a calling towards social entrepreneurship years ago, maybe about 15 years ago. And similar to her, I was like, no, I have to succeed in the corporate world, and then I can do the social good. And finally this year, I took the leap, and I've awoken to truly focusing on what I am here to do. So it's just perfect timing that this group has come into my life. So I thank you all for allowing me to participate in creating the space.
We're really delighted to have been stumbled upon.
And absolutely. And I put my email in the chat, Jacqueline. Do send us more information by all means. And Morgan, thank you very much indeed. You were right here as a student. I feel so grateful to have the opportunity to learn from you elders. Did you want to elaborate a little bit, and then we'll pass back to Marc and Valeria and Mama Kat for a last remark.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, similar to Jacqueline, I stumbled upon Chris's LinkedIn and had no idea that there was this wonderful Elders Council happening. So I just feel very grateful as a student who's interested in social innovation and work with a center at my university to kind of make that happen. I just feel so grateful to be in this meeting with all of you. So thank you. That's really all I had to say.
Thank you, Morgan. Lovely to hear from you. Andrea, should we invite our speakers to make a last remark and then hand back to Mel after that?
Absolutely. Please do.
Okay. So let's go in the same order. Marc, why don't you jump in with a couple of thoughts, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I think one of the hallmarks of wisdom of any age is the ability to hold two opposite, seemingly contradictory ideas at the same time. And I was really struck with Valeria and Mama Kat, Valeria talking about kind of this patience and impatience coexisting, and Mama Kat, your beautiful invocation of how ancient this is, and at the same time, you know, it's kind of timely and timeless. And I was thinking of the Skoll Forum this year, which was another paradox, because I think the idea of elderhood and the wisdom of the elders was everywhere, and it was also nowhere. And so I really appreciate how much the council is maybe moving us from the nowhere to the everywhere, and taking this timeless idea and you know, which has really arrived demographically, and getting people to engage more deeply than has been the case in the past.
Thank you, Marc. Thank you. Valeria, do jump in.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think I'd like to share something, just to turn it upside down. I think that the greatest part of wisdom I've gathered this year was to look, going back to that politician, at him, turning back to me in September after receiving a phone call and say, I need your opinion. And he had received a phone call asking him to sign one of those open letters. And it's somebody who was extremely influential. So whether he signed it or not is a big deal, right? And so we debated it and so on. And then he told me, okay, thank you. And I'll take my final decision after speaking with my son. He is my advisor. I do not take a decision without him. And so there's a man extremely important in our world who's asked people who are 25 years plus younger than him, not as anyway as expert as him in his area of work, for their opinion in order to take a decision really important for what's happening in the world. So that was the greatest lesson of leadership I have gathered, the ability to really be able to be humble and able to be curious and learn from the people that come after us, which I think is not typical of our culture, and I found tremendously beautiful. And I just want to add another thing also about the beauty of wisdoms is that they live with us, and that we can learn to embody them, and we can keep on sharing them with others. But just the knowledge of knowing that they are there, they help, at least me, they help me feel little more confident, little less lost when the gets hard, but also a lot more happy and joyful when things are getting well, because I'm feeling that I'm not doing it for myself, there is a lot of wisdom, a lot of people that I'm bringing together with me. And that is not my success, but it's the one of the wisdom of many. So I think it's also a beautiful thing. It's like when we pass on those wisdom, we also share a little piece of ourselves that are carried on further and through life. You know, it moves me to say it.
Thank you. Thank you. Mama Cat, your last thoughts, please.
My last thought, I need an AI thing that's going to unmute me when it's time for me to talk. A young person will invent that. But the organization that I'm affiliated with now is the Federation of International Gender and Human Rights, and that's a UN affiliated organization. And my position there is Queen Mother. And when I first saw that, I didn't know what to do with that, because it didn't seem, it's like I'm not trying to wear a crown or be the Queen Mother or be in charge of anything. And what I learned, though, is that the Queen Mother is not the person in charge. The Queen Mother is the person who loves and nurtures and supports the present kings and queens. And I love that, because it's like being able to figure out how to nurture and love and support and share information with the generation that now has the responsibility for being out there in the front line. And so when I look at Michael, I'm going to say you, Michael, because it's like, I love the idea of trusting you enough to figure out how I could just support you in doing the work that needs to be done. And because I believe so much that you are capable and you can do that, it takes the pressure of being a parent that's really, really close to a child. And sometimes you want so much for your child that you get in the way of yourself. But grandparent love is a little bit different. And so that's what I say in this relationship part of the way that we see each other when we create a human family. That idea of looking into the future and investing in the future, it makes it all worthwhile. And so this makes it all worthwhile. So thank you.
Thank you, Madame. Thank you very much indeed, Mama Cat. From a father, but most importantly in these remarks, a grandfather. So Andrea, thank you, Mama Cat, once again. So Andrea, I think now's the time to pass to Mel. What do you think?
Yes, I agree. I think we can trust him. Can we trust you, Mel?
Yeah.
I don't know. It always falls on me my role seems to be to summarize everything in 90 seconds, which of course is impossible. But in some ways, just that, you know, thanks to our speakers and everybody who's contributed. But I thought our three speakers there in the remarks there really summed it up, actually, in terms of everything. But there was some interesting themes, because we were talking about the Wisdom Bank, of course, and the launch of it. But actually, what we talked about a lot, and the same with the earlier session, was about wisdom, and you were all sharing lots of wisdom, which we can capture. One of the interesting themes, which is a bit different from the one earlier that was emerging out of this, was about that actually young people have wisdom. It's not about just older people having wisdom and then sharing it with younger people for them to take on. Actually, older people are still on the journey and still learning and still gaining wisdom, and they can gain that from young people. So that relationship, which all three speakers talked about between the different generations and how we're moving forward, is an important theme. With Marc, of course, you know, we heard his whole backstory about John and his pearls of wisdom, which have then been passed on and shared in his organization. Now Marc's 65, and then he's doing it again, so he's come back to almost where the beginning. And I thought that was really interesting, because Mama Cat also talked about the kind of the circle, that aiming towards that circle and where we're going, and learning and sharing, and that's really, really important. And Valeria, of course, as a younger person, talked about her experience, but she talked about, you know, this issue about patience, which Marc picked up as well, and the contradiction between being impatient and patient. Valeria also mentioned, you know, learning a bit of wisdom about you don't have to be perfect all the time, and we know that as social entrepreneurs. So sharing that, and then that transition is hard. And then of course, Mama Kat is just quite brilliantly summing up through the story about her grandchild and grandchildren and being a grandparent, about how you can share that wisdom. And that, you know, there was lots of quotes in here, but one of the ones I took from her was that this wisdom bank that we're creating isn't going to be a closed house. It's going to have windows, and it's going to be developing. And it's up to us, all of us here that's on this call, and others that have been on the call, to shape this wisdom bank. Okay. And so we want everybody to share it. We'll collect it, have it in house, and you should all know you can help develop this house further as we build this wisdom. And I think everybody's now saying this is really important juncture we've got to here. And so we want to grow this, not for the sake of growing it, but just building wisdom that we can all share, learn from, develop, and get to that circle where we're all respecting each other, learning from each other, and creating a better world. So I think that's what we're aiming to do, and that's where Mama Kat was coming from. So as I say, trying to sum up this conversation in 90 seconds is not possible. But I do want to finish by saying, apart from a thank you to our speakers who've been great, fabulous insights, and everybody who's contributed and was on this session, but I want to finish by saying, this is it then. This is the moment. We've launched the Wisdom Bank. It's on, it's happening right now. Please, a big cheer again. We'll be in touch. This is going to be something, because we're going to make it something. And we'll see you all soon in a very positive frame of mind, doing stuff. Okay, and sharing wisdom. And so thanks again for everybody.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care. Take care. And thank you once again. Thank you, Marc. Thank you, Valeria. Thank you, Mama Kat.